what if, the exact traits that made someone a completely terrible student, like ignoring authority, getting entirely average grades, and just refusing to follow the standard path, what if those are the exact same traits required to become a self-made millionaire?
I mean, it completely flips the script on how we're taught to measure human potential.
Mhm.
We're conditioned from a very young age to look for the perfect GPA, the pristine resume, the safe climb up the corporate ladder, right? We view those as the ultimate indicators of future wealth.
Yeah, but today we are taking that pristine resume and putting it straight through a shredder. Welcome to the deep dive. We are so glad you are here with us. We know you're constantly hungry for knowledge, and our goal is to help you get those ultimate aha moments without, all the information overload.
Exactly. And today we are unpacking a really massive analysis by social scientist and behavioral researcher Lucio Buffalmano. He founded a platform called The Power Moves, and he synthesized Thomas Stanley's foundational research book, The Millionaire Mind.
Right. And we're talking about an incredibly detailed survey of over 1,300 mostly self-made millionaires, looking at exactly how they operate behind the scenes.
Yeah, 1,300. It's a huge data set.
It is. So the mission of this deep dive is to uncover the exact strategic mindsets these self-made millionaires use to actually achieve wealth, and to just challenge everything we thought we knew about getting rich. Okay, let's unpack this, because the very first major data point from this survey immediately invalidates the whole straight-A student narrative.
It really does. The survey reveals that the vast majority of these millionaires did not attribute their financial success to their university education or, to getting good grades at all.
Wait, really? Not at all.
No, many of them were completely average students. In fact, a really significant portion were actively judged by the traditional academic system as simply not being smart enough for top-tier schools.
Yeah.
Or for those elite gate-kept professions like medicine or corporate law.
Wow. It's like expecting the teacher's pet to win the race, but then the street-smart kid just completely laps them.
That's a great way to put it.
But wait, I'm looking at the source here, and it says 90% of them did ultimately get a university degree. If the classroom learning wasn't the secret sauce, and if their grades totally didn't matter, why bother with college at all?
Well, what's fascinating here is how Buffalmano contextualizes that 90% statistic. A university environment, I mean, it's far more than just rote classroom knowledge.
Right, it's an experience.
Exactly. For these individuals, it served as this forced, high-stakes proving ground. It's usually the first time you're living entirely on your own. It forces you to navigate complex social dynamics, dating, socializing, and building a network entirely from scratch.
Without your parents there to bail you out.
Right, without that immediate family safety net.
So the degree itself is basically a decoy. The real curriculum is, like, learning how to negotiate a lease with a shady landlord or deal with an impossible roommate and figure out how to persuade people to help you when you have literally zero authority.
That is the perfect way to look at it. And it leads to a core concept that Buffalmano really highlights, which is mental empowerment.
Mental empowerment.
Yeah.
Okay, what does that look like in practice?
Well, when an admissions officer or a college professor looked at these future millionaires and told them, you aren't top-tier material, they didn't internalize that rejection as a permanent measure of their worth.
They didn't just give up.
No, they engaged in this profound cognitive reframing. They didn't let the system dictate their value. Instead of following the beaten path of getting perfect grades, they actually took that harsh academic judgment and weaponized it.
How do you practically weaponize a rejection letter, though?
By using it to generate a massive, sustainable chip on your shoulder. They essentially used that friction to fuel a relentless drive. They wanted to prove all those doubters wrong.
Wow. So they're essentially telling the system, you measure intelligence by memorization, but I am going to measure intelligence by market value.
Exactly. Because they couldn't rely on being the book-smart genius who gets, fast-tracked into a comfortable consulting job. They had to adapt. They were forced to develop a completely different, much more powerful set of skills to navigate the real world.
Yeah. If you aren't relying on an Ivy League stamp of approval, you definitely need an alternative lever. Which I guess brings us to the core traits they actually do rely on. Stanley asked these millionaires to rank 30 different success factors.
And the results are pretty surprising.
Yeah, the top 3 weren't high IQ or attending Harvard. They were honesty, discipline, and social skills. In fact, 94% emphasized that getting along with people is absolutely crucial.
It's a massive percentage.
It is, but I mean, is the secret just being the golden retriever of the office that everyone loves? That feels a bit too simple for building an empire.
Right. Well, Buffalmano, being a social scientist who runs a platform literally called the Power Moves, makes a vital distinction here. In psychology, there's a fundamental difference between communion and agency.
Okay, break that down for us.
So communion is warmth. It's being friendly, cooperative, being well-liked. That's your golden retriever analogy. But agency is about competence, dominance, and influence.
So communion makes you a great friend, but agency makes you a great CEO.
Exactly. It's not just about being liked, it's about agency. Agency is the shift from being a people pleaser to being a resource allocator.
A resource allocator.
Yeah, so instead of walking into a negotiation and asking, does everyone at this table like me? The high agency individual asks, did I successfully align the behavior of everyone in this room toward my specific goal?
Oh, wow. That's a completely different mindset.
It is. Buffalmano calls these power skills.
Yeah.
What that actually means is gaining status, commanding respect, generating attraction, competing, and winning. It's about achieving goals and influencing others. You're highly competent and socially skilled, but not just friendly.
But having those aggressive, strategic social skills implies you have to actually put yourself in a position to use them.
I said.
If you are a highly formidable, agency-driven person, you are naturally going to clash with a standard corporate structure. You don't want a manager telling you what to do.
You really don't.
So that inherent structural friction brings us to how these millionaires view the concept of risk.
Yeah, the transition from employee to owner is where their mindset diverges wildly from the general public. They actively condition themselves to overcome fear, to have massive self-belief, and to trust that confidence comes through continuous work.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though. Most of us think starting a business is like jumping out of a plane, while a 9-to-5 job is the safe landing pad.
Right. The standard advice.
Exactly. So how do these millionaires justify the belief that being an employee is actually the riskiest position you can hold?
Well, they look at the structural vulnerability of the 9-to-5. When you're an employee, you can be fired at any moment. You have zero control over that downside. A CEO you've never met can just decide to pivot the strategy on a Tuesday afternoon, and you're out of a job.
That's terrifying when you actually think about it.
It is. And on the flip side, there is a hard ceiling on your earnings. Your upside is strictly capped by your biological time. You literally cannot work 400 hours a week.
So you cap your upside but leave your downside completely exposed.
Exactly. Therefore, millionaires focus on building a business. The source actually references concepts from MJ DeMarco's book, The Millionaire Fast Lane, to hammer this home. They aren't just relying on passive income or slow stock market compounding. They are actively building equity through ownership.
Because ownership is the only mathematical way to decouple your earning potential from the ticking clock.
Precisely. Now, I do want to add a nuance here because Buffalmano does include a caveat. This view on employee risk isn't entirely universal. It depends heavily on regional labor laws.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, in countries around the world with really robust employee protections and mandated severances, that 9-to-5 risk is somewhat mitigated compared to at-will employment regions. We aren't endorsing one political or economic system over another here, just reporting how these millionaires analyze their specific playing field.
That's a really fair caveat. But regardless of your local labor laws, escaping that employee trap by building a business from scratch is gruelingly hard work. You are battling the market every single day.
It's exhausting.
So how do they avoid just completely burning out before they try to get rich?
The survey points to one clear answer for burnout, which is vocation. Simply put, do what you love.
Okay, but we always hear follow your passion, and it usually conjures up images of artists or tech visionaries changing the world. But this source says these millionaires are passionate about, wait for it, truck spare parts and car washes. How does that work?
I know, it sounds ridiculous at first, but it requires us to completely redefine passion based on the source text. We're told passion is this divine spark you magically discover before you start working. But Buffalmano points out that passion doesn't have to stem from lofty world-changing goals.
So where does it come from?
Love for a job actually follows competence.
Wait, really? So the mastery generates the passion, not the other way around.
Yes, exactly. The deepening of skills and continuous effort create the passion. Getting incredibly good at spotting opportunities is a passion in itself.
Oh, I see. So when you start out in the truck spare parts industry, it's just a job.
Mm-hmm.
But as you deepen your skills, you start seeing inefficiencies that your competitors miss.
You optimize a supply chain, you execute a brilliant negotiation, and that dopamine loop of mastery is incredibly potent. Stanley's advice here is actually to try many different things until you find what sticks.
Try a bunch of unsexy ventures until you find a specific competence. It's not the rubber and steel of the truck parts they love, it's the puzzle. It's the thrill of operations.
Exactly.
But building that kind of unsexy but highly competent business requires a rock-solid foundation. You can't focus on undercutting a competitor if your personal life is in chaos, which leads directly to the most critical choice these millionaires make outside the boardroom.
The data on their home life is just staggering. 90% of the married millionaires surveyed stated that their spouse has been absolutely instrumental to their success.
90%.
Yeah. They don't just happen to be married, they look for very specific things. They look for love, attractiveness, and common interests, of course. But they also heavily prioritize self-worth, integrity, compassion, and honesty.
Because if you're spending all your agency battling the market all day, you need absolute trust at home to protect your mental reserves. So what does this all mean for their day-to-day lives? Because the source presents a wild juxtaposition here.
It really does.
Yep. We're talking about highly competent operators with millions of dollars, yet they buy household products in bulk. They use discount coupons. They actually fix their old shoes instead of buying new ones. And they actively skip exotic vacations. Are they just acting like Scrooge McDuck, swimming in a vault of coins they refuse to spend?
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, it's not about hoarding pennies, it's about the concept of opportunity cost. They are frugal, yes, but they are not DIY maniacs.
What do you mean by DIY maniacs?
Meaning they don't try to fix everything themselves to save a buck. They happily pay to outsource menial tasks so they can focus strictly on what makes them the most money. This actually echoes the findings in another famous book, The Millionaire Next Door.
So they'll clip a coupon because it takes 3 seconds, but they won't spend 5 hours fixing their own plumbing.
Precisely. They're protecting their strategic focus. And this highly calculated frugality is most obvious in their real estate habits.
Oh, the real estate stats in here are wild.
They are. They almost never pay the initial asking price. They spend immense amounts of time scouting distressed properties, foreclosures, or divorce sales.
The survey notes that 73% of them never had a custom-built home, and 80% never had a spec house. They completely refuse to pay a premium for emotion or brand-new aesthetics.
Right, and they apply a ruthless affordability metric. They ensure they could still comfortably afford their home even if their income dropped by 50%.
A 50% drop. That is an impenetrable financial moat.
It really is. And this mindset extends to everything. They bootstrap businesses instead of borrowing heavily. The survey also notes that, on average, they attend religious activities, pointing to a generally grounded, traditional lifestyle.
Okay, so mental empowerment, high-agency social skills, decoupling time from equity, finding passion through unsexy mastery, and protecting your capital with a strategic spouse and ruthless frugality. I have to admit, it sounds like a flawless, bulletproof blueprint for success.
It does sound perfect.
But in the interest of giving the listener the full, unfiltered picture, we really must explore the major flaws in this exact blueprint.
Yeah, this raises an important question, and it's where Buffalmano introduces a really critical cons section to his review. Because taking this survey entirely at face value might actually be incredibly dangerous.
But wait, if 1,300 verified millionaires tell us this is how they did it, isn't that proof? Why should we doubt the winners who actually crossed the finish line?
Because of a massive cognitive blind spot called survivorship bias. Buffalmano references Nassim Taleb's influential book, Fooled by Randomness, to explain this.
Survivorship bias. Okay, how does that skew the data?
Well, the survey only looks at the people who took huge, concentrated risks and won. It completely ignores the massive, invisible graveyard of people who behaved the exact same way.
The invisible graveyard.
Yeah, people who were intensely honest, built high-agency skills, skipped vacations to bootstrap a business, took the exact same risks and went entirely bankrupt due to a macroeconomic shift or just plain bad luck.
Wow. So we only study the guy who won the lottery, and we assume his strategy of buying a ticket on a Tuesday while wearing a blue shirt is a financial masterclass.
That is the exact horror of survivorship bias, yes. Risk-taking produces extreme outliers of wealth, but it produces a much larger, silent majority of failures who never receive a millionaire survey in the mail.
That is incredibly sobering.
It is, and that leads directly to Buffalmano's stark disagreement with the millionaire's lifestyle. He heavily critiques their frugal vacation-skipping existence.
Because what's the point of having millions if you just sit at home using coupons?
Exactly. Decades of psychological studies show that spending money on experiences, traveling, exploring, celebrating with loved ones is precisely what makes life happier and more meaningful. Foregoing holidays and fun actually makes for a poorer life overall.
So you might win the capitalist game on paper, but you're living a profoundly poor life in reality.
Right.
Well, to summarize the ultimate takeaways for you listening, don't let the system's judgment hold you back. Build those power social skills. Embrace calculated business risks because of the structural flaws of a 9 to 5. Master the opportunity cost of your time and understand that passion actually comes from getting really good at something, not the other way around.
It's a potent framework, but it leaves us with a final, lingering question to ponder on your own. If the extreme frugality and relentless business focus required to build this level of wealth actively prevents you from enjoying the experiences that make life truly meaningful, at what specific dollar amount does the millionaire mind stop being a tool for freedom and start becoming a prison of its own making?
Something to think about the next time you look at the blueprint for your own life.
Eh.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive today. Keep questioning, keep learning, and keep diving deep. We will see you next time.